Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Well, when we think of the post office, we don't think that it's a place of ill repute, nor is it a place where you expect crime to happen. But in recent years, our post offices have come under the spotlight. That just means have come under investigation or have been highlighted that there's a problem. Under the spotlight is the idiom that we use to describe that. What happened was that back in the 1990s, the post office installed a new computer system. The computer system was called Horizon. I believe it was called Horizon IT, and it was to help post offices run more efficiently. However, over the years, they accused many sub-postmasters of trying to cheat the system and steal money. This scandal was described as the most widespread miscarriage of justice in UK history. Let me just explain first of all. So a sub-postmaster is the title given to the people who run the little post offices, which are usually attached to shops. We call them postmasters, and a sub-postmaster is the little ones compared to the big ones. Postmaster is an ancient title. It's not anything new. And miscarriage of justice simply means the justice was not done properly. You see, the post office accused many people of trying to cheat them and steal money. They used the computer system to prove that these postmasters had stolen cash. Many of these postmasters went to prison, even though they had done nothing wrong, and they tried to tell the post office that there was something wrong with the system because it was reporting shortfalls. A shortfall means there was an amount of money missing, that the figures didn't add up. Anyway, this system, which was developed in Japan, was used for tasks such as transactions, accounting, and stock taking. In total, more than 700 branch managers or sub-postmasters of post offices were prosecuted, and they went to the court on false accounting charges. Now, there's been a big investigation about this, and finally the post office admitted that there was a problem with their computing system, and that was only after many people challenged them to try to prove their innocence. Some people who worked at the post office were financially ruined, and others went to prison after these false accusations and incorrect judgments made against them. And since that time, many of these convictions have been overturned and corrected, but the people have been financially ruined, and the post office is saying they're going to compensate them with millions of pounds. But that hasn't quite taken place yet. I think maybe it's started, but the inquiry to examine how it all went wrong is still ongoing. Now, that was bad enough, okay? And our post office is in a big mess. I think, like many companies which have been privatized, which were public, owned by the government, and then became private, many of these companies just didn't know or realize that they actually had to take responsibility to make money. So they kind of spent millions installing new systems, but they never really realized that you have to win the people, to your point of view, in the private sector. The train companies are the same. They also are in a bit of a mess because they just stopped making profits. They didn't understand that in the private sector, you actually have to give a good service. Otherwise, people won't use you. Now, the thing about the post office is that the people who work in the post offices, generally speaking, many of them are from different backgrounds of minorities, such as black people, Chinese people, Asian people. The majority of these post office workers who've been accused come from our minorities. Now, this isn't strange. The UK is a very diverse country, and there are some occupations where minorities would seem to be more prevalent than in other industries. I don't know why that is. Probably it's the flexibility of working, or maybe it's because the post office had a recruitment that way. I don't know. But all I can tell you is that all of the post offices I've been to, especially in recent years, have all been operated by people of ethnic minorities. Not a bad thing. In fact, I love diversity. It's a very beautiful thing. But the post office, in their investigation, unfortunately, have used very racist language. During their investigation, they categorized postmasters and post office workers into categories which were used by colonialists. The categories in their documents included Chinese, Japanese types, dark-skinned European types, and Negroid types. These are archaic and offensive terms from our colonial era. The post office have been asked about this, and they said, well, actually, this is a historic thing. When they say historic, they mean 20 years. And they said the organization does not tolerate racism in any shape or form, and they condemned the language that they used. But that document was published between 2008 and 2011, so it's less than 20 years old. And of course, just by saying this, well, it's an old document and it's something of our past, but we don't condone racism. It raises all kinds of questions again about our attitudes towards minorities. I think from a personal perspective, I don't think people have a problem with it on the street. It's not a personal issue, but it does show that our institutions are still very racist. A report against the Metropolitan Police last year said that it's completely racist, from the top to the bottom, and it's been ordered to change, or else the government will close it. Not only the London police, the Scottish police issued a report 2 days ago which said that their findings suggest that the Scottish police are also completely racist from the top to the bottom, and that there are very serious errors which need to be fixed. On the street, this means that the police are more likely to accuse or to trap people who are from ethnic minorities. We tend to be more suspicious of non-white people when it comes to crime. I don't mean from a personality point of view. If I see someone on the street, I don't make any assumptions about them based on colour, but it seems that the police and the post office both do. And not only this, our political parties have also been accused of inherent forms of racism. So it's very difficult to get away from this because it's a question of changing attitudes instead of simply trying to change rules. Changing attitudes, sometimes it's easier just to change people or to change staff. But there seems to be something inherent in these institutions which generates suspicion. But I would have thought, being a policeman, you would need to be suspicious of everyone anyway. Isn't that just part of being a police officer, that you're naturally suspicious of what they're doing? I don't know. But that's the story today of our post office. And it's already in big trouble anyway, because it's saying now it doesn't have enough money to survive. They've tried various things in the past to separate themselves from the government, which I suppose is a good thing if they're private. They tried changing their name. I think it became Insignia at one point. And then they also tried dividing it into two bits. We had post office counters, and then we had post office parcels, I think it was, or the other bits of the post office. And then at one point, the government owned one bit of it, but not all of it. And if I use the train service as an example, I know that in Scotland now, they've taken back the train service because they've just said that, well, the train companies don't seem able to operate it effectively. And that's also happening in parts of England. And now the Scottish government is looking at taking over the bus service again. So it's kind of unpicking all of the things which were done by Margaret Thatcher in the 80s. She privatized water, post office, train companies. So it looks like we're going backwards. So it's all very, very strange. So yeah, that's the story of our post office. So I don't know how much longer it's going to be around. If it's paying millions as compensation to victims, and it's also had loads of strikes this year that have affected its delivery status. It promises next day delivery for a letter, but that's now been reduced to over 2 days. You have to wait for a letter. I mean, who uses it anyway? We just go on to Amazon, and Amazon can deliver things far more effectively and wonderfully than the post office can. I think there's also private couriers for letters that you can use to send things. But like everything else, I'm a little bit suspicious of the post office, because these days you just don't know who it is that's handling the stuff that you're sending. And I think just because it's the post office, a well-known historic name, I mean, they've been around, I think, for around 150 years. But these days, I'm just not so sure that I would trust them after scandals like this. And then, of course, the workers were striking last year, saying that they had really bad working conditions, and That also put the post office into a lot of debt, and they're now saying that they're really struggling to operate. So I don't know if the government would take them over again, like they have done with the trains and some buses, or whether they'll just watch it die a very painful death. But just like our public libraries, the post offices are kind of vital hubs of the community. Many banks are closing their branches everywhere. And, well, that's because people are doing their banking online. But when they close, they simply tell us, okay, you can use the post office. We've made an arrangement. You can deposit checks there. You can withdraw money there. So the post office is not just about sending letters. You can also use it for day-to-day banking, as our banks have literally all left us now to offer only online services. So you see, even our banking is done there. So the post office is a real hub. Well, my local post office is in the newsagents, but you can find them in corner shops and pharmacies. The post office can set itself up anywhere because they're franchised, and the people who work in them are often self-employed, which again would be very favorable for people who need flexible working hours, particularly minorities who like that kind of thing because they have larger families than we do, and they might have religious obligations which the rest of us don't have. So that's a history of our post office. I hope you've enjoyed this. Very sad to see something like this disappearing, but I would imagine in a few more years, it'll just be kind of vanishing anyway, because it's only people like me who send Christmas cards and Easter cards that keep the thing alive, I think. But it's like watching an animal die. It's really sad, really sad. All right, then, that's it from me. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and let's talk again soon. And I wish you all a wonderful day.